Hey everybody, welcome to Worship Tutorials, and my name is Fuller. Thanks for joining us. Hope you've been enjoying these videos on the top 5 secret weapons of pro keyboard players. So we are on the 4th installment of this video series, and today we're talking about something that's extremely important, especially for the house of worship, and that is creating moods. As the keyboard player in your band, your job is to be able to create atmospheres, to set moods in certain situations, often playing underneath someone talking or transitioning from song to song. So being able to create moods is really important, because if you're in the middle of kind of a somber few songs, you don't want to play transitions that are upbeat or happy. So being able to figure out how to match those moods are extremely important. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So what we're talking about is underscoring, playing underneath what's happening, not really playing the songs themselves, but playing in between songs. That's an important tool in the toolbox of the keyboard player, is to be able to transition moments, to be able to set environments. That's why it's so critical that you kind of have a mental awareness of how to do that. Now, it is helpful in this situation to understand some music theory. Knowing about how keys work, how they relate to each other, different types of chord voicings and things like that is extremely important. And what we're going to be doing is applying all of the other secret weapons that we've learned in the previous 3 videos. We're going to be using layering. We're going to be using different chord voicings and chord qualities. And of course, we're going to be using ambient pads to help us create these moods. So if you haven't watched those videos, go ahead and go back and watch those videos so you kind of understand some of the terminology I will be using and some of the things and techniques I will be using in this video, so that we can put it all together to create these moods. So there's really 2 kinds of moods that you can create. There's a musical mood, which is the chords you're playing and the melodic content you're using, and then there's also the texture of the moment, the sounds that you're using. So being able to use those in certain combinations will help you get that mood that you want to get. Now, of course, you can just play piano, and a lot of you might actually be limited to a piano, and you can apply kind of the same principles to that, minus the textures, because when you're only playing piano, you're kind of glued into just the piano sound, and the piano sounds a certain way. It is timeless, but it doesn't allow you to do some of these other cool things. So I would encourage you to start, if you're just using piano sounds now, to really start exploring outside of those sounds. Start using pads and strings and all of that stuff, so that you can kind of start sound crafting the moment and not just worrying about what you're playing. So for this first progression, I like to call just kind of like the basic somber, reflective, if you will, chord progression. It's going to be minor 6, 4, 1, 5 in the key of C major. So we're going to start pads in the key of C, and then I'm going to play that. So I'm going to start on the 6, which is the A minor. Kind of a thought-provoking vibe. Go to the 4. Feels good, feels nice. I'm going to go to the 1. Kind of inspirational here, into the 5. And I'm going to do a suspended chord. And then I'm regular 5. Let's try that again. So this is A minor, F, to the 1, the C, and to the 5. And that's pretty much it. So it's a very simple chord progression, but it's very effective. Okay, so for our next mood, this one's going to be a slight variation of that. We're going to go to the key of D major, and this one is going to be a little bit more inspiring, I think. We're going to go 4, 5, minor 6, and then we're going to turn it around on the 1/3 inversion, which would be the D over F sharp. So we're going to go G, A, B minor, D over F sharp. Cool thing about this is it kind of loops endlessly. It doesn't ever really feel like it has the need to resolve. So here we go. Pads in the key of D major. Feels really cool. This is a very hopeful sounding progression, and I can just stay on that 6, turn it back around on the 1/3, go back to the 4, 5, 6, thing about this progression is you can kind of sit on these chords. You can just hang out on that 6 for a while till you want to turn it back around. And it's really cool. So you can resolve to the D at any point in time. What's cool about that progression is it gives you a lot of freedom and flexibility. There's something about having the tonic pads on the 1, which is in D major, and just playing that 4 chord. That's just a great feeling right there. It's very hopeful. So anytime you want to kind of create a sense of hope, it's that 4 chord over the 1 tonic, which gives it that really cool feeling. As opposed to what we were doing earlier, we were just starting on the minor 6. Just those 2 different feelings are completely different. This one is a little bit more somber, thought provocative. And then when we start on the 4, it just has a feeling of hope. So it's really effective. Knowing where to use these chords is so important. So if you're playing under your pastor or someone who's talking, if they're talking about something hopeful, like doing outreach or feeding the poor, you want to use that 2nd progression. If they're talking something that maybe is more self-aware or challenging people, you may want to play the somber progression. So the cool thing about this, it's not rocket science. It's just some basic chord progressions, and you want to get used to playing these progressions in every key. So let's recap. So the first progression, minor 6 4 1 5. Learn that in every key, or at least every key that you're gonna be using consistently. You might not need to learn it in C sharp, but C, F, G, D, A, E, B, those are common keys in worship music. So get those progressions down. It should be a very easy thing for you to just always pull that progression out no matter what key you're in. Okay, so let's talk about a couple variations here. So let's say you're in the key of C major and you're playing that first progression. You're on the A minor, and that 4 chord, you got 1, then you got the 5. Now at this point, you could switch over to that 2nd progression to kind of change the feel a little bit. So let's just kind of go to the 4. So now you've added a sense of hopefulness here. See what I'm doing? So I'm just mixing these 2 vibes together. Now let's say I want to go back to the original one. Right? So I'm already there. So I've got 2 vibes I'm able to kind of go between easily. And once you get your mind wrapped around the chords in all the keys, you can do this for every song. And it really is endless. And the cool thing about this, it always gives you a tool so that you can make the moment. Those are 2 really important moves. You got kind of like a somber move, and then you got the slightly inspirational moves. But between those 2 moods, that's a really powerful toolbox. If you want something to be more reflective, maybe a little bit, maybe even mysterious, or just give people space to process, a lot of times I won't play chords and I'll outline the chords an octave higher and with some sort of melodic motif. So let's take the key of C major, for example. We're going to roll up pads, and I'm going to roll off a little bit of the low end here, make it a little shimmery, if that's a word. And I'm going to set the chord. I'm going to play that C down there to establish that. And then up here I might just play around with the notes in C. I might play just G, D. D is like the 9 of the C, so I might just play around with that for a little bit. Turn the pads down a little bit. I don't want it to be too overpowering. And then I might go to the 4 chord here. Similar to what we kind of talked about in our other videos before this, so again, go back and watch those if you haven't seen those yet. But just kind of creating this sense of movement. Now let's go to the 6 chord here and let's just play around a little bit. You're just kind of filling in the gaps a little bit. If somebody was talking right now, this gives you a lot of space. You don't overpower them. I'm I'm on the 5 now. There's a sense of hope. There's a sense of inspiration. And if you know your major scales, that's all you got to do. You're just playing around in these scales. Let's go to the 4. All I'm doing is I'm just outlining these chords. It's kind of almost like a jazz technique. Just basically you're playing lead lines over the notes in the chord. So if I go to the 5 here, suspended, and I just pick out those notes up here as well. And then we can always resolve with the full chord. Give a sense of completion, which are really cool. We'll fade out the pads and then you're done. Let's say you want to get a little bit more mysterious. You can always play around with the Lydian scale, which is basically like the major scale except you're sharping that 4. So if you're in the key of C, you might throw that F sharp in there. Creates a sense of awe, a sense of wonder. This is kind of like a Thomas Newman trick for those of you who know who Thomas Newman is. He does this a lot. But you're basically makes you think, makes you wonder kind of what's behind that door or under that rock. Pretty cool trick. Really simple. You don't want to overuse it, but it does create a little bit of tension and a little bit of, you know, just self-reflection, which I think is powerful. And to be able to kind of give that to the people in your audience or your congregation, it's a really cool thing to be able to kind of create space for them to think. And it also gives you the ability to emphasize what's being talked about, what's being taught, what's being preached. Very powerful thing. Now another trick, if you want to get really tender on people, tender moment, you can always go to that major 7th chord. So if we're in the key of C, we can always bring out that major 7th, you know. Adding that B and that C chord. Makes it real tender. I'm also throwing the major 7th in the 4 chord, which is the F. I'm throwing that E in there. So just doing those 2 major 7th chords. Then always to the 5. That suspended 5 always gives you a lift there, back to the 1. Or we could go back to the other progressions. That second progression. Very cool. So there's a lot of cool tricks you can do when you want to create these moods, but remember, this is all about keeping it really simple, not drawing too much attention to yourself, and it's really, really basic. I'm telling you, just learn those few progressions in every key, and suddenly you're freed up. You don't have to worry about, oh no, what am I going to play in between songs, or what am I going to play when the pastor's praying or someone's talking. You just instantly have these in your bag of tricks so you can create this mood anywhere you want to go. Now I want to give you a couple practical tips about underscoring live and creating these moods, because I think it's really important. You know, it's one thing to know it, but then it's another thing to kind of feel it. And you always are going to find yourself in a situation where maybe you start kind of wondering, oh no, where am I going to go, or how am I going to get out of this? So I got a couple practical tips here to help you with that. My first tip, and it sounds simple, but stay out of the way. Okay, so when you're underscoring and when you're creating moods, don't do too much. Again, this is why pads are extremely helpful. It just allows you to not get in the way. So if I'm in the key of D, I'm not going to be playing, you know, full chords. And it sounds like the intro to Cheers or something. You don't want to do that. You want to just kind of stay out of the way. So, you know, less is more, maybe not full chords, maybe just roots and a little bit of melodic stuff up top. Just stay out of the way. You're there to just kind of help move the moment. Another huge tip, and I see this done a lot with people who are just starting out, but one of the most common mistakes that I think people, keyboard players use when they're trying to underscore live is they get locked into a rhythm, or they get locked into a song or a feel. You don't want to do that. Let's say I'm doing Cornerstone. We're in the key of C. I got pads going, you know, and if you don't know Cornerstone, it goes like this. And it kind of changes over the chorus. So I don't want to play that thing because people are going to be still listening to that. So maybe I might just go. So let's say I'm coming in on that C. I might highlight that. And I might still play the chords. Change up the melody a little bit. But you don't want to lock in. See, so I can just stay on this chord forever. And it's okay. Because I'm not locked into a rhythm. I might go back to the 4 chord. Give it some space. But what I don't want to do is get locked into a rhythm like this. It's hard to do that because then if you want to stop or lay low, people notice that. So you don't want to do that. You always want to leave your moods unexpected. That's why, after you've played a certain progression for a few times, mix it up a little bit. So we're doing the 4, setting the tone, a little bit inspirational. We're on the 6, we're going to turn it around on the 1/3. Okay, we might go up an octave. That gives a little bit of variation. I might start playing the notes out. There's a lot of different things you can do. But let's say I do want to change it up a little bit. So I'll go to the 6 here. So maybe this time around, instead of turning it around, I'll just go back to the 5. Okay? But you see what that did? It made a massive change in the mood. And so you gotta just know what that's gonna feel like and sound like. I'll go back to the 1/3. Okay? So I'm back on the 4, 5, 6. Okay? Now let me just go to the 4 and just sit on that for a while. Okay? So I can sit on it. So, or you may just go straight to the minor. So you want to be able to get familiar with what it feels like getting in and out of these progressions. One little tip for you is this. Anytime, no matter what you're playing, you can always go to the 4 chord. The 4 chord sounds great coming out of every other chord. So if you ever feel like you just kind of get stuck and you're not sure where to go, you can always bounce back to that 4, which is always a stable chord. It sounds like it wants to go somewhere, but it's also very stable. So it's a great chord to land on until you maybe kind of gather yourself and figure out where you want to go from there. Because sometimes you might start freaking out and you just need a place to land. 4 chord's always a great place to land. You land on the 4 chord when you want to give stuff space. You go to the 6 chord when you want to change kind of the direction and feeling. So if I go to the 6 here, so now I'm in A minor. Totally different feeling. So really start getting familiar with the different feelings of the 4 and the 6 chord. So in the key of C, the F feels inspirational. The minor 6 feels somber and reflective. Just know that in your head. So when you're in the key of C, you know what that's gonna feel like. I'm on the 5, so I already know in my head what the 4 will feel like. 4 is gonna feel like this. Okay? It's like a fake resolve. But if I'm on the 5 here, the 6 is gonna turn the whole thing around. Take you into a whole new different place. So get familiar in your head and your ears to what that's gonna feel like. That way you'll know you'll be able to make the correct decisions. Also, avoid going to the 1 unless you want to feel like it's resolving. The only exception is when you're going from the 4 to the 1 to the 5. But if you are doing a lot of different random stuff, whenever you end on the 1, gives it a sense of finale. So make sure you use the 1 very sparingly. So remember, you can use the 4 if you want to take a break. You can use the minor 6 if you want to kind of start down a whole different path, and you can use the 1 to kind of resolve when it's over and you're ready to go into the next song or the next moment, whatever it is. Okay, so that concludes our video on moods. I hope this was helpful to you. Again, like and subscribe to our videos so you can get notified when we release new content. Also, please make sure you join the comment section. Let us know what content you would like covered in future videos.